Good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle. I'm a senior back-end engineer at a company called Flagstone, which is a cash investment platform. And I want to, before I start, I want some audience participation. So a show of hands if this is your first time at the OWASP Bristol Charter. Nice, a lot of first timers. So everybody else here are regular. So thank you so much for welcoming us. Thank you, John, for organising this event, and Ping Identity for hosting us here and providing us with really yummy pizza and drinks. And also want to thank Louis for doing the second talk. I've seen it before at our internal conference called FlagCon, and it's really awesome. So yeah, stay tuned. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here with you today to share with you a process that can help prevent security vulnerabilities before a single line of code has been written. So you're probably wondering, how do I know about threat modeling? So at my current company and my previous company, I'm part of a security champion program. So this is where one person from each team gets involved in security initiatives and helps drive them across the company. Did you know most security vulnerabilities are introduced early on in the software development lifecycle? And so with that, in today's ever-evolving cybersecurity landscape, securing application remains a critical challenge with companies. Remains a critical challenge if companies lack awareness of cybersecurity testing processes such as threat modeling, especially in the early stages. They face vulnerable to attacks, which can impact your company's application, assets, and reputation. This highlights the need for your company to be proactive and shift left, which means carrying out security processes much more earlier on in your software development lifecycle. So coming up in this lightning talk today, we're going to talk about what and why you can threat model, and then we're going to talk about how you can carry out threat modeling and go through a brief example. So when you're building a house, when is the best time to add a bathroom? It would be in the planning phases before any concrete has been poured or bricks have been laid. This saves you time, money, and is way less stressful. And the same principles apply in software development and cybersecurity. We've all seen this graph before. As you progress through the software development life cycle, the cost and the time it takes to remediate defects, software bugs, significantly increases. And this famous quote from Benjamin Franklin, "If you fail to plan, you are planning to fail." So this highlights it's really critical to have a security requirement, security plan in place before you start development work. So in this lightning talk, I'm going to use this as an example. So what are we building this sprint? What's our user story? So as a business customer, I want to download a VAT receipt for my purchases so that I can claim back VAT and keep an accurate financial record for accounting purposes. So we'll be using this in the example. So often when we are building software, we focus on the product aspect, functional requirements. So when I go to my order history page, I can click on this big green shiny button and download my VAT receipt. And often an overlooked aspect is security. What happens if you try to access another customer's report? What happens if you try to do an SQL injection, cross-site scripting attack? These are things that companies, businesses don't think of in the early stages until it's too late. So this is where threat modeling comes in. So this is the official OWASP definition around threat modeling. So it's about identifying, communicating, understanding threats and coming up with mitigations of them. And over here it says to protect something of value. So a show of hands, how many people here work with health data? One person. How many people here work with financial data? Quite a lot of people. And how many people here work with customer data? Everyone. So we all have something of value that we want to protect. So I'm definitely in the right place. And we've all seen the headlines, and these attacks seem to be getting more frequent, more sophisticated, and causing big reputational damage and financial loss for companies. And recently, this year, Marks and Spencer's faced an attack where they were offline for 46 days, and that was an estimated loss of 300 million. Imagine if your company was offline for 46 hours, 2 weeks, 1 month. Imagine how disastrous that would be. So you don't want to be one of those headlines, right? So what's at stake? So I briefly touched on financial loss. So this could be through loss of revenue, fines from financial from the FCA, and this can lead to increased infrastructure costs. So if you're undergoing an attack, you may need to scale up your APIs to continue to serve genuine customers. And as we know, cloud bills are already eye-wateringly expensive, so you don't want to be adding towards that. And this can lead to delays in development if you're firefighting, dealing with security issues. And then this could lead to you not having an innovative edge and losing your place in that market. And finally, this can lead to operational strain. So if you're an on-call engineer getting paged at 3 o'clock in the morning, dealing with these security incidents, it can be very exhausting. Then people make mistakes, people get burnt out, and then eventually people leave your company. So how can we actually put threat modeling into action? So today I'm going to be talking about the 4-question framework. So the reason that I've chosen this one is really easy and accessible to understand. So you don't need to be a security expert to carry out your threat modeling. It helps you identify threats early before any code has been written. And this leads to having security by design from the very start. So 4 simple questions. Let's take a look how simple these are. So these are: what are we working on? What can go wrong? What are we going to do about it? And finally, did we do a good job? So let's take a look at what each one of these steps involves and talk about those. So the first thing, what are we working on? So this is where you get everybody into a meeting and you whiteboard the solution that you're working on. So you draw out your current architecture, and then alongside that, you draw out the new feature that you're working on. And like this, having like a broader picture of taking a step back and taking a look at things. And you can also represent this new feature through data flow diagrams. How does the data flow all the way from your customer into your backend systems and all the way back out? So it's a really powerful way to represent your system, and it comes up with good talking points. And threat modeling involves multiple people. It's really all about communication and collaboration. Then this is where it gets interesting, where you get to put your Mr. Robot attacker hat on and think, what can go wrong? So this is where you put your post-it notes on the areas of the system of potential threats that you think about. And in the meeting, everybody gets a chance to share their ideas and talk about their different points of view and different threats. And for this, you can use different structured approaches, such as methodologies and checklists. So after you've identified your threats, this is where you talk about your threat mitigations. How can you prevent these things from happening? So everybody in the room has time to add their post-it notes alongside the threats. And when you are doing your threat modeling, you will uncover a lot of threats. So it's really important to evaluate and prioritize these based on the risk. So just remember, the risk is the likelihood times the impact. You don't want to be spending your time on trying to fix low or medium risk, because you would just be spending all of your development time on trying to fix things. So it's really important to get these critical high issues prioritized. And once you have these, it's really important to integrate these into your software development. So take them to refinement meetings, get them prioritized alongside the development feature work. And finally, did we do a good job? So this is about evaluating your security approach. Maybe before you didn't have a security approach, and now you do have one. Now you have security requirements, and this can feed into creating security checklists. So, for example, every time you integrate with a third-party API, you can look at, you have things such as rate limiting, circuit breaking, and so on. So every time you do this task, it becomes easier and easier and just part of your standard development processes. And threat modeling is not just a once and done process. You don't just threat model one project. It's about continuing to do that for new projects and threat modeling existing parts of your application. So when is the best time to carry out threat modeling? It would be during the design phase, before any code has been written. If you're doing any major architecture changes, such as merging two platforms together or migrating cloud providers, it could be a good time to do a security review. So getting an idea of the health of your application. So you could just start off somewhere in a small part of the application and iteratively move on. And after incidents, so if you've had any security incidents, you can use threat modeling to work out, hey, where did this go wrong? How can we prevent this from happening again? Are there any other places in our application where we may be vulnerable to this? And it's really important when you do hold these postmortems around security incidents to share them far and wide in your company. Is good. Making mistakes are going to happen, but it's good that you learn from your mistakes and you grow as a company. So who should you involve? So we've got developers. Not all heroes wear capes, but in this one example we do. So we are the domain experts. We know about the unauthenticated endpoints, the things that shouldn't be there, the things that keep us up at night, but we're also the domain experts in the area. Then you've got architects, so it's good to get them involved early on in case anything needs to be re-architected. So yeah, good to get them involved. Then you've got your security engineers, so these are your experts on threats and mitigations, and you can learn a lot from your security teams. Then you've got stakeholders, so if you're doing any cross-functional work, so say the auth team is doing some work with the payments team, it's good to get collaboration early on in that in case anything needs to be reworked. And finally, you've got product owners, business stakeholders. It's really important with threat modeling to align technical and business risk, because the business understands the appetite for risk. So for example, if you're adding a new field to an endpoint, is it commercially sensitive? What would happen if our competitors saw it? So answering those type of questions. There are various different approaches for threat modeling. So you've got STRIDE, PASTA, attack trees, security checklists. These are all different ways to approach threat modeling, and they can be used to systematically apply threat modeling in the same way across your company. So if that's something that's important to your company, it's good to get these agreed earlier on. I've personally used STRIDE and security checklists, and these can really help for good talking points and making sure that you are covering off all areas. And there are many free and open source tools. So we've got OWASP Threat Dragon here. And we've got John, who's the project leader for that. So if you've got any questions, go speak to John after. We've got Iris Risk and appdiagrams.draw.io. What I'm going to say about this, if your team are all located in the same place, get around a whiteboard, use post-it notes and pens. Don't let tooling slow you down from starting threat modeling. So going back to our user story around being able to download a VAT receipt, let's look how we could threat model this. So what are we working on? So this is where we are going to highlight all the different threats. So here, this is our example of our existing architecture. So we've got the clients here, API gateway, order service, and then we've got our DynamoDB NoSQL database here. So pretty standard architecture. So now we're going to add the new feature that we're working on. So in order for us to do this, we need to add a shiny button on the client, add the endpoint to the API gateway, order service, and then we're going to have a new receipts service, which will store the receipt in the S3 bucket, and that will be used to generate the receipt and pass it back to the client. So now you're going to be in a meeting, everybody's going to understand the business context of what you're building, and they can have a visual representation of the architecture and how everything flows through. So now the exciting part is what can go wrong. So identifying these threats. So your threat model could look like this. So you've got all these yellow post-it notes here. So let's take a look at some examples of the threats. So like on the API gateway, could be a DDoS attack. And in the new VAT feature, there could be an attack of path traversal, so a bad actor going in and trying to access other customer reports from changing up the customer URLs. So what are we going to do about it? How can we mitigate these threats? So everybody in the meeting will have time to put their post-it notes on. So these green ones here are the threat mitigation. So let's zoom in and have a look at some of those. So the threat on the API gateway, so how can we mitigate that? We can implement rate limiting, traffic shaping, and also use the CDN. And the threat around using path traversal, like ensure that you sanitize inputs and you don't, if you can, don't use like customer IDs and stuff in URLs. So after you've done threat modeling, a really important step is to document these in your ticketing system, Jira, DevOps, whatever you use, and give them a risk level. So these can feed into your development, into your sprints, and be worked alongside your the stories that you're working on and be delivered as part of your project. So you know when your project goes live, it will be good. So what are the benefits of threat modeling? So these really help you define security requirements from the start. I'm sure we've all been in a situation where everyone's like, just build this, and people tend not to think about non-functional requirements. And having these sessions can really help your team understanding and everybody learn from each other about the domain, security, the products. So having a much better understanding. This can save you time and money if you are not firefighting these things, being proactive rather than reactive, so you don't have to rework. And taking a step back, it can really help you spot hidden design flaws if you're looking at attack trees, architecture. These are things that like security tools like Sneak and Wiz will overlook, and this can help you consider new attack vectors. And overall, this leads to better quality and design of your application. So when you implement a new process, it all goes well, right? Not always. There's always challenges with implementing new features. So lack of security expertise, engineers may not know about security things. So you have to provide them training, guidance, things such as like OWASP Top 10 is a really good place to start with that. Time constraints, often people say we don't have time to have another meeting, but this 1 hour meeting could save you hundreds of hours and lots of money along the way. So when you're doing threat modeling, start small and iterate. Don't threat model your whole system. And this can really help you align technical and business risk. Is good to be on the same page and have the business and engineers all pull in the same direction. And often people can say, oh, threat modeling, the security teams already do that. Yes, security teams do already do threat modeling, but they don't have the domain expertise. So it's really important to collaborate on threat modeling. And often companies, people can be resistant to change. So what you can do here is demonstrate a return on investment. If you've had any previous security incidents, how many hours did you spend on it? How much money did you lose? How many people were involved with it? And use this to gain buy-in, share the headlines for similar types of companies. You don't want to be one of the headlines, right? So now that you know about threat modeling, do you think you've been involved in a security incident that could have been prevented by it? I know I have. Threat modeling is just writing all the terrible things an attacker could do before they do it. Don't wait until development or testing phases to think about security. Prioritize security early on in your software development lifecycle. Using a shift-left approach helps prevent security vulnerabilities and protect your company's application, assets, and reputation. Integrate threat modeling into your projects to help drive a security-first culture at your company. Thank you. I have a QR code with some learning resources around threat modeling and my contact details on there if you want to connect. Got some time now for questions if anybody's got any. Yeah, so like security can be an infinite game if you let it be. So I think it's about having those secure coding practices, that secure design from the very beginning, because you don't want to be threat modeling the same things over and over again. So if you standardize your patterns, standardize your security, then when it comes to it, when you are doing threat modeling on your new features, you know, we need to do this, this, and this. So it's not a surprise to anybody. So it's about like integrating those ways of working early on. Yeah. Yeah, I would say at the end of the day, it's just boxes and lines. Just start simple and keep it simple. Then iterate from there. Then try out tools. Auditors. I don't work with auditors on a day-to-day basis, but if they have the time to come along to these things, that would be good. I'm not sure if auditors just like look at things from a different angle, like after a project's been delivered. But if you can get input early from auditors, like business stakeholders, that would be good. Any more questions? Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. I think like developers like know more security stuff than they think they know, and a lot of this stuff is refreshers for them. And it's like really important that engineers are trained on like OWASP Top 10, secure coding, all of that. So you don't necessarily need the security team to be there, but they are the experts and they can add bits of values. But yeah, developers can do it on their own. Yeah, my team have done it on their own as well. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to set the scene, and I've not heard of people doing that before. So yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Like typically before, just send like a thing around like the business context, not these are previous attacks that have happened, but maybe if you do send like these are previous similar things that have happened, it might influence people and they might not be able to see past that and think of new things. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a good idea. And, you know, those things were in the headlines, how can we prevent that happening? So, yeah. Yeah. Cool. Thank you very much, everyone.